Hey guys, today we are going to be answering the question, should I go to art school? And if you've watched any of my other videos, you may know that I'm going to do a lot of hemming and hawing and that being said and one last caveat. But hopefully we'll get to something that'll be worthwhile for you. And at the very least, you'll get to watch me draw this. One of the most common questions any professional artist gets is, should I go to art school? Or even more generally, should I go to college or get a college education at all? It's a really tough question because, the answer of it could completely change the course of someone's life. And everyone's experiences and needs are different. And that's especially the case with art, where the path to become an artist, a professional artist, tends to be totally different for every person. So it's a hard thing to replicate. And this is compounded by the fact that the world is so rapidly changing, and it's really hard to make concrete statements that are going to give you any guarantee of success. I mean, that's one thing for sure, is I'm never going to be able to give anyone any bit of advice or any direction that's going to guarantee you any success. At the best, it's going to kind of educate you and give you, maybe point you in the right direction, give you some things to think about. But art, just by its nature, is kind of a crapshoot. There's always risk to it. So I think sometimes when people are asking, should I go to art school, I think what they're really asking is there kind of a safe way? What's the safest way? What's the surest way to get there? And there just isn't one. But the best that I can do is talk about my own experience. I can talk about what I've seen other artists do, and just what I kind of see going on in the educational world right now. First of all, there's the question, is it necessary to go to art school? Like, would you have to go to art school to be successful as an artist? Or to like a really prestigious art school to make it as an artist? And the answer to that is no, absolutely not. I've known many, many artists that didn't have any college education or didn't finish or went to like a community college and were able to excel. They could be at the top of their field as artists. When it comes down to looking for a job, all that matters in the art field is what your portfolio looks like and whether you're someone other people want to be around. I mean, I guess you could also say that your work experience does matter. If you can show in your portfolio that you've worked at, other game studios or animation studios that have a reputation, that is definitely going to matter. But no one cares about what your education is or what your GPA was or anything like that. I've never had anyone ask me about that. All they care about is if you can do the job. So not only is not going to an art school necessary, but going to college at all isn't really necessary to succeed as an artist. I mean, if you can find a way to learn that stuff, you can make it. And I just want to be very clear how important the word necessary is. This idea that it's not necessary to do any of that. There is a way. You can absolutely succeed as an artist without some fantastic formalized art education. Nowadays there are so many resources available online. There has never been a better time to be an artist if you don't have the money for formal education. In fact, I believe that most of my education as an artist, most of what I learned, has really come from things I learned online. I mean, there's also like my personal practice and my on-the-job experience. But man, all the resources that I found online. And I did some figure drawing and painting in college, but, it wouldn't rise above what most just kids doing figure drawing and painting in college could teach you. It certainly wasn't a rigorous, hardcore art education that I got in college. Most of my art education really came after I graduated from college. So you have an option if you don't want to go to school. There is an alternative. That being said, we get back to this word necessary. College may not be necessary, but it still might be a good idea for a number of reasons. First of all, I think we've gotten really hung up in the last several years in the idea that the purpose of college or university is to get you a job, is to give you job training. And there is like another purpose of college. There's this idea that you are going to college to learn for learning's sake. There's this idea that you learn to be a good citizen, you learn to be a responsible citizen, you gain different perspectives. I found in my university education, just the education I got, kind of the really basic education about the way the world works, about how to write, how to understand difficult ideas. All that stuff was super beneficial, and I'm glad that it helped me to be a more well-rounded person, a more thoughtful person, and that it wasn't just totally focused on learning a specific trade like art. So there may be reasons to go to college just for that experience and the kind of really unique things you learn about how to be a citizen of the world. Second, and this one's really big, and it's one I could definitely talk more about, but, art is really best made in communities. One of the best things I personally got out of school was this chance to interact and compete and collaborate with this group of bright, young, ambitious artists. And man, I just cannot emphasize how important that is to be able to engage with other artists, to be able to share ideas, and not just other artists, but to share and kind of argue with just intelligent people across as many disciplines as you can. So I would certainly say that if you decide not to go to college, find a community, find a group of artists that you can engage with and collaborate with. Online is okay, and there's a lot of opportunities online, but if you can find a group that you can interact with in real life, face to face, man, that's just going to return dividends that you could never get online. I think that's harder to do, but maybe a topic for another video too is to talk about, maybe if you really care about art, you should live in a place where that's more of an opportunity. If you're living out in the suburbs or out in the country, it's going to be harder to do that. The closer you can live to a city, and that doesn't need to be New York, it doesn't need to be San Francisco. The closer you can live to any kind of metropolitan center, the better chance you're going to have of finding other artists close by, and the easier it's going to be to form these groups. I've had a group of artists, specifically comic book artists, that I've hung out with almost weekly for years, for several years, man, maybe 5 or 6 more years. We get together once a week on Tuesday nights and draw and just chat, and there's people that come to the group that don't even draw, but that's been an amazing resource for me. So third, a degree matters. In our world, a degree means something. Even if it means something symbolic, it really matters. And hopefully you make millions of dollars making art, but chances are you may have to go through some periods where you have to get like a quote unquote regular job, in which case a college degree is going to make a huge difference in what job you can get. And I know I already went through this whole big thing about how in art it doesn't matter, but there may be cases where you have to work a job that isn't an art job. And you'll just get paid more. So think of it this way. Maybe this is how you want to strategize. Your backup job may well be the key to you being successful as an artist. So imagine you study a subject at college with a track record of paying a high wage out of school. Even better, a job that pays decently and allows you some flexibility with your schedule. So you can now leave school and you have this like safety net. You have this stability. You have this thing that you can always fall back on. And this just allows you to take bigger risks. Think of it like a stunt man that has to do some death-defying stunt where he's like jumping from building to building. I guarantee you that stunt man is going to take bigger risks and going to make a much bigger, more explosive, crazy-looking stunt if he knows there's like a safe pile of cardboard boxes beneath him to land on, or even better yet, that he's tied to a wire, or, the more that you kind of protect your ass, the more that you make sure you have a backup plan, the more confident you are going to be to take big, big risks. Because if you fail, you always have a backup. So think about that. And I know that's a hard thing to kind of juggle and judge how much extra time you want to invest in that other thing, because you could clearly get a job that demands so much of you that you can't do art on the side. So you have to really balance that. You have to think about, and this is something I've said a ton, you have to think about what your standard of living you demand is. The humbler you live, the less money it takes for you to get by, and that just allows you to take so many more risks. So, the other approach I've seen, I don't know if any of you guys follow the Mr. Money Mustache blog, but here's a guy that studied computer engineering. He left school, and as a single guy, I think for 5 or 6 years, he made 6 figures, and he just lived very humbly. He saved a lot of money, and after that time, he had saved enough that he could basically be financially independent. That could be a really powerful approach for you to take to be able to allow you to make your art. You do something, you do a job that pays well, that you can do well, and do that for a while, and then save up enough money to be financially independent. Maybe you want to go into petroleum engineering or something. I don't know. But anyway, that's one idea. It does work for some people. Not everyone has that opportunity. So college isn't necessary, but it might give you a strategic advantage. And there's just some ideas, some of them a little bit crazier than others, about how you might use it to your advantage. Okay, so all that being said, here's when I'm going to come in with some opinions of my own. I'm sure I've already expressed a bunch of my own opinions, but this seems more opinion-y. If you do decide to go to college, I would be very skeptical of paying too high of a price for your schooling. So I've seen a lot of really interesting research lately demonstrating that there's a certain amount of diminishing returns from additional dollars that you spend on your education. So, for example, I saw this thing that basically, I don't know if you call it a study or an article, but it basically listed all the universities where the Nobel Prize winners went to school. And, you think it would be like Harvard, Yale, all these like Ivy League institutions, but it's not. It's literally all over the map. It looks like just this even sampling of what looks like a university from every geographic region in the country. The other thing you can look at is the school loan crisis we're having right now. Clearly, there are a lot of dollars being spent on education where people are not getting return on their investment. That's why they're going into such big debt. They have these huge college loans, and then they can't get jobs to pay off the loans. So you have to think very, very carefully about every dollar that you're going to spend on your education. And if you can't find good evidence that the expense is going to be worth it, don't spend the money. Personally, when I think about my own kids, and because I'm probably going to be paying quite a bit of their schooling expenses, I just want them to go to state schools, and I want them to spend as little money as possible just to get the degree. I really am skeptical that spending any more money than that is going to do them any good. And for what it's worth, in my own personal experience, I went to BYU. My parents paid the tuition, but it was not very much tuition, since the tuition at BYU is basically subsidized by the LDS Church, which I will forever feel kind of guilty about because I'm no longer a member of the LDS Church and I'm not paying back into the system with my tithes. But it was a cheap tuition. I left school without any school debt. But my experience at being at school, I was focused completely on learning about film and how to tell visual stories. I knew I wanted to be an artist, so I only did the bare minimum necessary to pass my classes and focus the rest of my time on reading interesting things I found in the library, making my own short films. I remember taking a documentary filmmaking class at one time just so I had access to the equipment I needed, and I ended up making this like little black and white sci-fi short film. And like I said, I spent my time working and sharing ideas with other young artists, which was fantastically beneficial to me. And I have no idea what my grades even looked like. I did what I needed to get a degree and learned what I wanted to, and then I graduated. I had a fantastic experience at school, and so I can never really dissuade anyone from school. So maybe the best way to think about things is to disentangle your art education from college and be like, figure out what you want for your art education, and then decide separately from that if college is something that makes sense for you. I mean, maybe you do both. Maybe just do your art. I don't know how you're going to mix it up. I think at the very least, we live in a time today where you have a lot of options, a lot of ways that you can choose it. All I would say is try to find a way to approach it that costs you the least and gives you the best bang for your buck, that allows you to take risks and still have kind of a safety net to rely on. So I hope there was something worthwhile there for you. If you have any thoughts, any observations, your own experiences, of course, leave them in the comments. Please like this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will talk to you next time.